Sometimes the truth doesn't knock. It storms in. For over 10 years, America observed the Brown family smiling in front of the cameras. One big family founded on faith, togetherness, and the hope of mutual love. But what if, beneath the smiles, something sinister had been festering? Something entwined, mysterious, and infinitely more hurtful than anyone could have ever envisaged. Tonight, that dream teeters on the brink of destruction. Because Christine Brown, once the center of Sister Wives' warmth, has finally had something to say. She claims it's time the world hears the truth about what went down to her children, and to the people who put their faith in Kody and Robyn Brown. They said it was love. But what Christine is describing now feels more like control, manipulation, and betrayal on a level even she hadn't anticipated. She says there were backroom deals, behind-the-scenes money transactions, and broken vows. She asserts that while one branch of the family was struggling, another was constructing a kingdom, constructed not on faith, but on lies. And it didn't happen overnight. Christine says there were warning signs, little things, little lies, swept under the rug in the interest of maintaining harmony. But little by little, a pattern began. Money going missing, stories not adding up, choices made without input. And sooner or later, Christine says, she caught on that she wasn't being pushed out of the marriage. She was being erased from reality. Now Christine is talking, and what she's telling us is causing shockwaves in the Sister Wives universe. Fans are reeling. Veterans of the show feel betrayed. And the Browns, the family that was once the face of plural love, are now accused of things that may change the way viewers think of them forever. This isn't another breakup. It's a tale of deception and loyalty, of what happens when trust, the one thing that forged a family, is replaced with something else. Because Christine says she's finished guarding the image. She's finished keeping quiet. And she has evidence that she maintains will reveal what she describes as a web of lies and theft concealed in broad daylight. And if that's true, then the story of Sister Wives isn't just about love anymore. It's about money. It's about power. It's about who was really in control all along. Behind every smile, there was someone breaking. Behind every "we're fine," there was someone being left out. And now the woman who once had faith in it all is prepared to reveal what she claims really went down in that mansion. The one fans believed was constructed on faith, but perhaps constructed on secrets. Christine Brown has spoken, and her words are shaking everything. Tonight we strip away that web. Not gossip, not rumor, just the story that's been hiding in plain sight. Robyn and Kody Brown, television's ideal couple, now find themselves at the center of allegations that would redefine their legacy. Christine insists the proof is out there, and once you see it, you'll never think about this family in the same way again. From the outside, it was like harmony. But go in, and it begins to resemble a trap, a web weaved carefully, beautifully, until one woman chose to unravel it thread by thread. This is that story. The story of what Christine alleges was stolen from her, and the empire she alleges was built on silence. Stay tuned, because what you're going to hear might change everything you thought you knew about Sister Wives, Robyn Brown and Kody Brown. Before the world began whispering about betrayal and lies, before Christine mustered the courage to leave, there was a family, big, proud, and founded on a dream that few could ever comprehend. The Browns weren't born of fame, they were born of faith. Kody Brown felt that he had a calling, to live differently, to create a household governed by spiritual precepts that stated love could be multiplied, that one man could love more than one woman, and have a family in peace. It started in the early 1990s. Kody married Mary first, his lawful wife, the one who assisted him in laying the groundwork of a faith-based family. Janelle followed, reserved but clever, practical in the ways that complemented Kody's spontaneous charm. Christine soon followed, the heart of the home, the woman who added warmth, laughter, and stability to a home that was growing more quickly than anyone could have imagined. For years their tale remained secret, whispered only among their tiny Mormon community. But in 2010, TLC introduced the Brown family into American living rooms. Sister Wives was a momentary phenomenon. Millions watched, captivated and conflicted, as Kody presented his fourth wife, Robyn. Robyn was younger, softer spoken, and different from the other wives. To some she represented rebirth. To others the beginning of the end, That was the turning point. Christine, once radiating confidence, began to step out of the spotlight. Viewers saw her smiles shortening, her voice quieter, her eyes frequently glazing over when Kody and Robyn were around. But the camera didn't stop. And while the world observed a family smiling through the turmoil, behind the scenes, resentment, confusion, and heartbreak began to build. Year by year, the cracks became canyons. Kody's focus waned. Robyn's grip intensified. Money choices started to get fuzzy. Shared accounts, collective debt, new houses, and a whole new mansion constructed under the guise of togetherness, but funded under questions that never quite resolved themselves. By 2018, the tension was impossible to ignore. Christine wanted independence. Janelle started questioning leadership. Mary was emotionally detached. And Robyn, once the newcomer, was now the center of Kody's world. Fans noticed, they called it out, but the show continued, and Kody dismissed the rumors as gossip. Christine smiled in pain, insisting that she still believed in family, but in her mind, something was already different. Then came 2021, the year that changed everything. Christine said she was splitting with Kody after more than 25 years. It was more than a breakup. It was a break at the very heart of what the show professed to believe in. TLC cameras documented the aftermath. Christine gathering her belongings, saying through tears that she couldn't pretend anymore. The episode went viral. Fans referred to it as a revolution, the moment a woman who'd been silenced for years finally stood up and took back her voice. But leaving wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Because when Christine walked out from in front of the cameras, she didn't just leave a marriage behind. She walked toward the truth. She started to speak out, slowly at first. In interviews, podcasts, and online posts, her voice created a different portrait of the family America believed it knew. She said that while she and the other wives were suffering financially, money was being directed elsewhere. To Robyn's house, Robyn's bills, and what she characterized as a widening imbalance in how finances were managed. At first it sounded like frustration, the kind any family would have. But the more she talked, the more her tone shifted. She alluded to there being things she couldn't reveal, at least not yet, that something greater was at stake. And that's when fans began piecing it together. Social media exploded with questions. Where did the money go? Why was Robyn's house so much bigger? Was Christine actually being pushed out? Or was she discovering something they didn't want her to uncover? By 2022, Christine was emancipated, living on her own terms, regaining her confidence, smiling again. But she hadn't forgotten, and as the popularity grew, the voice grew stronger than ever. So when Christine seemed to suggest that there were still secrets lurking in the grave, people listened. That's when the term web of lies began floating around, a term fans had adopted way before Christine ever publicly used it. It represented what the audience was thinking, that the Brown family's idealized image had been an act, deliberately constructed, covering something genuine, and maybe something not right. Now in 2025, Christine's saga is moving into its second act. She's remarried, content, and at peace. But she's finished keeping secrets. In a recent pronouncement, she hinted at papers, at proof, at money trails she claims will vindicate everything she's ever claimed. And although Kody and Robyn have proclaimed innocent, public opinion is already split. Some will defend them to the death. Some demand it's time the truth is finally told. Love turned into loss. Family turned into feud. This is what brought us to tonight's tale, the disintegration of a home once based on trust. And as we move into the specifics of Christine's revelations, the papers, the money, the betrayal she claims tore everything apart, one question lingers. Was the Brown family ever really united, or were they living in a tale carefully penned to conceal the truth? So before we get to the evidence, keep this in mind. Every story has two sides, but one truth. And tonight we're going to take Christine's journey to uncover it. They named it a web of fraud and thievery. The very description has a hyperbolic ring, a tabloid-style headline. But when you pay attention to what Christine Brown has been telling us, when you trace the thread of muffled words, sidelong glances, and receipts, you begin to wonder if perhaps there is more to that title than anybody cared to let on. At the center of it all, Robyn and Kody Brown, the sole remaining partnership of a once extended plural marriage. Over the years, the family's life played out on TLC, laughter and love, and tension and heartbreak moments. But beneath the carefully constructed smiles, Christine reports something much darker was unfolding. She doesn't say theft, at least not directly. Her language is gentler, more measured. She speaks of trust being stolen, dreams being stolen, promises being rewritten without her consent. But then, as you begin compiling the incidents she identifies, the money flows, the transfers, the mysterious transfers, the distinction between emotional infidelity and real deceit begins to dissolve. Christine's complaint, essentially, isn't that Kody and Robyn lied. It's that they constructed something in secret, behind the rest of the family's backs, something self-serving, something hidden, and pretended it was still all one great united family. The tale dates back to the time when the Browns moved out of Las Vegas. Remember that, the relocation that divided fans right down the middle. Kody reported being told to relocate the family to Flagstaff, Arizona. By God. He spoke about constructing new homes on a huge piece of land, known as Coyote Pass, an ideal property where every wife would have her own place, but they would all still be one family. It had sounded lovely. It had sounded just. But from Christine's subsequent testimony, it was never equal. Because while she and Janelle were barely keeping up with payments on their shares, Robyn's house, the lawfully owned house, was being purchased in full, in cash, in Robyn's name. Christine began to notice trends that didn't add up, bills that wouldn't match, missing signatures, broken promises when cameras weren't there. And bit by bit, she started to understand as she was constructing a dream. Someone else was taking ownership. She asserts Kody and Robyn weren't merely handling family money, they were steering it. Each additional dollar, each shared possession, each shared decision, silently benefited Robyn's household. Now, whether or not that constitutes theft, is something that hinges on what you consider to be betrayal. But for Christine, it wasn't so much about money. It was about intent. It was about seeing that the man she trusted for 26 years wasn't just emotionally absent. He had been building a life without her while she was still trying to keep the family in one piece. In interviews, Christine never explicitly attacks Robyn. She is measured in tone, but each pause, each sigh, is weighted with history. Some people, she had once said, pretend to share a vision when they've already chosen their favorite. That quotation hit the fandom like a bolt of lightning. Everyone knew to whom she referred. Behind the scenes, murmurs increased. Robyn and Kody were centralizing everything. The finances, the titles, the power into one household. As others were asked to make sacrifices, Robyn's life expanded, became more secure, more walled off. Then the tax filings, the property filings, the quiet changes that online enthusiasts started to uncover. Receipts where Robyn's name was not supposed to appear. A quietly registered company. A trust that appeared to divert funds from the family pool. None of it against the law, but all of it suspicious. Christine's exposure, as some viewers have come to refer to it, wasn't one of confrontation but of confession. On camera, in one of the show's most softly powerful moments, she replied, "I don't trust him anymore. I don't trust that what's said in this family is true." And in that instant, it wasn't only about love lost, it was about truth lost. The web the title alludes to isn't constructed of tangible proof or legal accusations. It's spun out of emotion, commitment, and the subtle manipulation of trust. Robyn and Kody have been described by some as the engineers, stringing layer upon layer of misinformation, until everyone else was ensnared in choices they never consented to. Fans began to refer to it as the Coyote Pass con, a catchphrase that exists in Reddit forums and Facebook groups, shared in hushed tones, like a rumor that everybody kind of knows, but nobody can confirm. Christine's account of things portrays Kody as a man blinded by his love of Robyn, a man who exchanged fairness for favoritism, and Robyn in her silent, tearful manner, as the woman who professed to desire oneness while secretly embracing authority. And still, what hurts most about this greatest betrayal isn't what might have been stolen, it's what was irretrievably lost. The notion that this family could ever really trust each other again. Because when you think someone has been lying to you all these years, when you think that the fantasy you gave up for was never even yours to start with, there isn't coming back from that. That's what Christine revealed. Not only the mechanics of money or property, but the emotional building codes of dishonesty. She revealed to fans what it looks like when love becomes twisted with domination, when forever and always turns into mine first. And that's what this moment is all about. Not forms, not rumors, but the ugly human sorrow of seeing you were faithful to a lie. So when folks say, Robyn and Kody's web of lies and theft, they're not only referring to goods, they're referring to shattered promises, to the emotional embezzlement of trust, to a woman who finally did say, no more. Because sometimes the greatest theft is not money, it's hope. Christine Brown does not yell when she shares her story. She doesn't have to. Her strength is in the quiet, in how she stares right at the camera, and speaks just enough for you to sense everything she leaves unsaid. The sigh preceding her sentence, the half smile that conceals years of disillusion, the quiet determination that this time, she's done being polite. When she speaks of Kody and Robyn, it's not the complaint of a spurned ex-wife. It's the voice of a woman who's watched too much, given too much, and finally concluded that silence is more expensive than truth. Christine's proof, if you can even call it that, isn't one big revelation. It's 1,000 little things that added up over time. The deeds to the house, the property borders, times she questioned something and received half answers, times money went into something nebulous called family expenses, only to return as a down payment on a house with Robyn's name on it. She recalls the day Kody informed her of Coyote Pass, how his eyes sparkled with vision, how he explained that each wife would have a lot of land, how they'd grow old together in that vast Arizona desert. But when papers were to be signed, Christine says her lot was suddenly under review. It wasn't until months later that she was told Robyn's lot had been finalized, paid for and locked in. First, she believed it was an error. Then she remembered that it wasn't. She tells us about sitting in the kitchen counter, papers scattered across it, trying to comprehend how she'd been excluded from something she'd contributed to helping create. That's when it dawned on her this wasn't solely about property. This was about priorities. In her interviews, Christine frequently refers back to the term invisible. That's the way she felt during those final years. She tells Kody's love had become conditional, for obedience, not love. And though Robyn received empathy, she received silence. Though Robyn received attention, she received explanation. But Christine is a detail-oriented woman. She observed the way Kody ceased to call family meetings, unless Robyn was there. How money discussions suddenly became between them. How decisions that used to be made by 5 were now made by 2. That's when she started making connections. One evening she claimed she saw a sheet of paper on Kody's desk, an ordinary list of costs. Except it wasn't ordinary. It was color-coded, blue for Robyn, red for Janelle, green for her. But only one column didn't have limit. No notes, no question marks. Robyn. That instant, she says, shattered her heart silently. Because betrayal doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just whispers, you don't matter anymore. Christine's statements do not accuse, they expose. She tells anecdotes rather than screaming allegations, such as when she was short on cash to pay for her daughter's surgery, and Kody declared the family could not cover it. But he went out and purchased Robyn a new car weeks later. Or the Christmas when her children received presents from the family fund, while Robyn's children received brand new iPads. None of this criminal, but all of it heartless. She maintains that's when she began taking her own notes, not to reveal anyone, but to remind herself that she wasn't making things up. Every transaction, every shift, every inexplicable decision, noted quietly, neatly, in a spiral notebook. That notebook served as her proof, her disillusionment diary. And then the emotional evidence, the kind that can't be captured on film. The shift in Kody's tone when Robyn walked into a room. The warmth of his voice that disappeared as soon as he was facing her again. Being heard and being handled. When Christine finally spoke on camera, it wasn't an outburst. It was surrender. The beautiful, quiet kind that comes when someone chooses peace over confusion. I can't keep pretending we're one family, she said. Because we're not. Fans felt that line deep in their bones. It wasn't just a wife leaving a husband. It was a woman walking away from an illusion. In her post-exit interview, Christine has explained that she doesn't bear them ill will. She even says that she can see why Kody and Robyn clicked. Maybe they're soulmates, she shrugs. But then her gaze hardens a bit. But they didn't have to ruin everything else just to be each other. That's the duality of Christine's testimony. It's not only what she lost, but what she gained once she left.
Freedom sounds like something, and in her voice, you hear it. Soft, earthy, unapologetic. To her, the web wasn't spun overnight. It was built slowly through favoritism disguised as faith, and control disguised as leadership. She doesn't call it theft of money. She calls it the theft of fairness. Each woman in that household she gave up something from Kody peddled them.
Lionel sacrificed fiscal security. Mary sacrificed emotional stamina. Christine sacrificed heart, the intangible glue that made everything seem conceivable. But when the glue was no longer necessary, she was expendable. And now, when she talks, it's not with fury, it's with clarity. Her evidence is emotional fact, and that for her listeners, trumps some spreadsheet ever drawn to rights. Those 6 words were her closing remark. Not bellowed, not acrid, just final. Christine doesn't have to testify to what went down in Robyn and Kody's house. She's already testified to what went down in her own heart. The breaking point at which loyalty gives way to self-respect. And that, above any accusation, is why her story is compelling. Because sometimes the best evidence isn't the paper trail. It's the woman who walks away, quiet, confident, smiling, and never looks back. There are 2 sides to every story. And in the Brown family drama, Kody and Robyn's side isn't screamed, it's expounded. They don't sound like villains. They sound like 2 individuals who believe they were attempting to salvage something that everyone else had quit having faith in. When Kody sits before the camera, hands clasped, jaw clenched, there is a combination of desperation and rebellion in his eyes. People don't realize the burden I carry, he says. They assume it's favoritism, but it's about order. It's about defending what's left. He swears there was no betrayal, no theft, just survival. To him, the financial turmoil of the family was not the result of fraud, but of lack of organization. Some of the wives did not keep up with the budget, he says. Some desired freedom but still wanted the shared money. I had to make decisions, practical ones. To him, Robyn wasn't a favorite. She was the lone holdout on board. She obeyed the rules, he explained. She believed in plural marriage when other people quit. She trusted me. And that word, trusted, becomes the fulcrum of their defense. I can't lead people who do not trust me. I can only defend the ones who. To Kody, that is not manipulation. That is leadership in crisis. He does not view himself as the designer of deception, but as the individual keeping the falling house together while others simply walk away. Robyn, who sits next to him for interviews, nods and her voice is gentle, uncertain, as if each word might be taken out of context. I never wanted this, she whispered. I didn't take anything. I just did what Kody told me was best for the family. She gives her own account of the web. The public story was the trap, in her view. Fans who demonized her. The wives who closed up emotionally years before money ever entered the picture. They hated me before they even knew me, she says. How do you live with that? Robyn says that the house being purchased first wasn't favoritism. It was logistics, kids' education, loan qualification, timing. Someone had to go first, she says. And the loan just happened to clear in my name. That's all. But even as she speaks for herself, her voice trembles, not with guilt, but with the exhaustion of having been misunderstood. Fans see contrast. Robyn sees complexity. She insists she did try to reach out. I told Christine we'd work it out, she recalls. But she'd already made up her mind. Her tears are real, but they don't erase perception. Because by the time she started crying, the audience had already chosen their hero. Kody's tone changes as the interviews go on. Calm defense gives way to irritation. His sentence is short, edgy. I gave everything, he says. Decades of my life. And all I get are accusations. I'm sick of being made out to be the bad guy. It's not pride. It's pain masquerading as pride. He claims Christine's account omits the years he attempted to juggle love and responsibility. She wanted me to have to choose between them, he says. And when I didn't, she accused me of betrayal. In Kody's version, Christine didn't reveal a web. She broke the covenant. You can't call it theft when you get up and leave the table, he says. You left your chair. Someone else had to fill it. It's a cold metaphor, but one heaps. To him, the family wasn't stolen. It fell apart, and Robyn wasn't the reason. She was the last standing. When the dust had settled, I never wanted to replace anyone. She breathes. But when everyone else walked away, I remained. Is that so bad? Her voice quavers on that question. The room is heavy, the sort of heavy that occurs when truth and defensiveness become so entwined you can't distinguish them. Kody leans in near, pleading now. Folks, remember, this is not a television show to us. It's our real lives, our real heartbreak. He hesitates, then finishes softly. I still love them. But love doesn't mean you allow people to tear down everything you created. That's where his explanation has its core. In the conviction that control means protection, that to keep things together, there had to be a leader. And if that leader was the shape of Robyn, it's because she never fought for it. Their voice throughout interviews is defensive, but also exhausted. They've become figures in a narrative they no longer own. The villains in a saga that once held the promise of unity. And perhaps that's the tragedy of their side. They're not innocent, but neither are they wholly guilty. They're human, broken, afraid, hanging on to what remains. When Robyn states, "We didn't steal anything," her voice cracks believably. When Kody concludes, "We were the only ones still fighting for the dream," his conviction sounds nearly melancholy. The tone of a man espousing a kingdom no one else desires. And that's the transition. The tone shift that marks their subsequent interviews. From authority to defensiveness. From confidence to justification. The spider web they're said to spin turns into, in their perceptions, a gilded cage made of everyone else's anger. They claim to have been the loyal ones, the builders, the believers, the ones still wanting to be the plural family, while the others opted for independence. But the more they protest, the more isolated they ring. Because somewhere between denial and explanation, their words begin echoing in an empty house. A house too large for two individuals and too crowded with memories that no longer fit. Their version of events is not the confession the fans were hoping for. It's a painting of two individuals caught in their own rationalizations, refusing to realize that what they perceive as survival, everyone else defines as control. And perhaps that is the true defense. They didn't intentionally lie. They just couldn't accept the truth that love constructed on power always breaks hearts. It began innocently enough. A single fan, a single post, a single comment. But like any great mystery, it quickly gained traction. Within days, Sister Wives fans everywhere on Facebook, Reddit, and YouTube were piecing together dots that the show never properly revealed. Screenshots, property deeds, financial reports. Each part of the puzzle was now a clue to what fans began to refer to as the Brown family audit. It started out as curiosity, but then it became obsession. One Utah viewer had written, "Something's not adding up with those Coyote Pass payments." Another responded, "Christine said she never saw her name on any deed, so where did the money go?" And thus were born the internet detectives. They drew county records from Flagstaff. They looked for business filings in Arizona. They even cross-checked mortgage documents on the wives' names. And the more they dug, the more obvious one pattern became. Nearly everything traced back to Kody and Robyn. Viewers discovered that Robyn's residence, the one Kody referred to as their family home, wasn't in both of their names. It was in her name, financed with a loan that she signed for, with none of the other wives being mentioned. To the fans, that seemed like evidence. Evidence that the web wasn't solely emotional. It was financial. Evidence that as Christine and Janelle were fighting to stay equal, Robyn and Kody were guarding their own comfort. The fan base, previously segmented by love for the wives, began to bond over a new purpose, seeking the truth. On TikTok, creators uploaded deep dives with side-by-side contrasts, Christine's interviews alongside Kody's budgeting explanation. On YouTube, long-form talking head videos dissected how Robyn's expenses contradicted her assertions of just scraping by. Each week, the list of evidence grew. Each show delivered additional layers of speculation. But it wasn't only numbers, it was action. Viewers began to notice Robyn's body cues on confessionals. The lowered eyes, the half-smile when Christine was mentioned. They slowed down footage, examining her voice, her hesitations, her exhales. That's guilt, some would say. That's control. Others would counter. Even Kody's words were interpreted as clues. His monologues on loyalty and respect, once taken as leadership, now sounded to many like rationalization of manipulation. And all the while, Christine's steady honesty was the emotional touchstone. Viewers started rewatching past episodes with new eyes. Every smile from Kody to Robyn, every fight over justice. Every time Christine rolled her eyes during a conversation, it was all there, in plain sight. To the fans, it seemed like it was their duty to uncover the truth, that they owed Christine and Janelle it to ensure the world heard what actually went on behind those Flagstaff walls. They referred to themselves as the truth seekers, numbering thousands. And yes, some of it was rumor, but much of it was derived from actual data. Tax records available to the public, property records, legal documents, all available, all pointing in one direction: Kody and Robyn taking control. On Twitter, one of the viral posts stated it so bluntly: Robyn didn't break the law, she broke the sisterhood. That line captured what most viewers felt. This wasn't about money, it was about betrayal, about loyalty fractured beyond repair. But the fan investigation didn't stop there. When TLC aired the next season, people began timing Kody's screen presence, noticing that Robyn got more emotional close-ups, while Janelle and Christine's segments grew shorter. The edit, some said, was protecting them. Each minute production decision became loaded. Each silence in conversation, each fill song in the background, each angle of the camera. Viewers perceived manipulation at every turn, not only in the family, but in the narrative itself. Theories followed, some outlandish, some agonizingly plausible, that Robyn and Kody were scheming a spin-off, that they'd transferred funds prior to Christine's exit, that Robyn's internet jewelry company had quietly gone under at the same time property transfers commenced. None of it was confirmed, but all the rumors stoked the flames. Soon there were fan-made documentaries. Commentators would use Christine's words as voiceover. "I don't trust him anymore." Those 5 words became a rallying cry, reposted, remixed, subtitled with clips of Robyn sobbing and Kody pacing. And along the way, the narrative ceased to be about them. It became reflective of the audience. People saw in Christine courage to walk away from something poisonous. They saw in Kody the risk of uncontrolled domination. And they saw in Robyn the specter of complicity, the insidious face of power that is feigned innocence. It was no longer gossip. It was solidarity. For longtime viewers who'd watched along, the betrayal was intimate. "We grew up with this family," one commenter noted. "We watched them create that dream. Now it's like watching your own friends disintegrate." Others made the investigation activist, posting links, demanding answers, calling out TLC for covering up for Kody's reputation. The movement gained a momentum of its own, and even though none of that was officially confirmed, perception was reality. In the court of public opinion, Robyn and Kody were already convicted, not of stealing, but of hypocrisy. But under the din, a more subtle truth came out, one that even the fans started to feel uncomfortable about. That perhaps in pursuing justice, they'd become part of the same web. That each comment, each click, each video analyzing the family's grief, they all sustained the very narrative they were judging. In pursuing truth, they brought the web into existence. And yet perhaps that is why this chapter is so unsettling. The Browns opened up their lives to the public, and the public would not turn away. The fans didn't merely watch, they engaged. They constructed timelines, made connections, and completed blanks that the family refused to fill in. And while doing that, they formed something the show never set out to build: a shared inquiry fueled by tragedy. Adelman. Because in all the noise, all the theories, something was made clear. Christine's freedom wasn't just her win, it was theirs. In the end, perhaps the web wasn't theirs alone. Perhaps we all contributed to weaving it. One post, one headline, one shattered heart at a time. When the truth, or what the public thought was the truth, finally came out, something within the Brown family snapped that could never be mended. The rumors that began on fan sites had crossed over into mainstream headlines. Christine's revenge, one magazine proclaimed. Robyn's empire crumbling, said another. The tale had left the sanctity of online forums and entered the international spotlight. Journalists parsed each post, each public utterance. Talk shows had experts on body language breakdown interviews. One of the most viral segments hung on Kody's tightly clenched jaw when his host asked, "Is this the face of guilt?" And for the first time, the Browns, once invulnerable under TLC's watchful eye, were being questioned by millions. Within the family, tension became silent. Calls ceased. Group texts remained on raid. The plural marriage that began in the name of shared belief and togetherness now existed in pieces. 4 corners of suffering that would not touch. Christine at that point was already gone. in body and spirit. She'd sold her home, returned to Utah, and started anew, something serene. On her social media, fans could see the transition: natural smiles, laughter with her daughters, sunlight where there had been angst. The caption that broke hearts simply read, "Sometimes peace costs everything." But for Kody and Robyn, the aftermath was brutal. They showed up for interviews with that same defensive tone, Kody's fingers jerking quickly, his words heavy with justification. People don't get it, he'd tell them. They don't get the private moment. But the public no longer craved private moments. They wanted responsibility. Viewers noted how many times Kody's apology led to an argument, how Robyn's crying always seemed so timed. Even when they attempted to be vulnerable, the viewers detected manipulation. Every word felt like a line, every feeling like an act. As the media firestorm intensified, TLC stood at a crossroads. The reality show that had once embraced plural marriage had become a TV implosion. Ratings skyrocketed, but so did outrage. The network's silence only stoked speculation, and within the Brown family itself, smaller cracks began to open up. Janelle, once the practical voice, began speaking up, delicately but resolutely. "I think we all messed up," she said to one interviewer, her voice firm but sorrowful. "But some of us were willing to take responsibility for it." That sentence resonated through social media like a gentle thunderclap. Mary herself reached a turning point. A former stalwart supporter of Kody through every storm, she came to acknowledge openly that loyalty sometimes appears as denial. During one of her live streams, her voice shook as she stated, "You can't fix what someone refuses to see." The fans, countless of them women in their 50s and 60s who'd followed the family for decades, reacted not with scandal, but with compassion. They saw in Mary the woman who lingered too long, in Christine, the woman who left at last, and in Janelle, the one who came to know the difference. But the moment the media started perceiving the story less as a breakup and more as a cultural reckoning was when the turning point actually arrived. Stories with such titles as "The End of the Polygamy Myth" and "When Faith Meets Freedom," featuring experts and family systems, debated how control and favorites are destroying common marriages. Talk shows hailed Christine as a female empowerment icon, the woman who left control behind and chose peace. While Kody's image in the public eye changed from misunderstood patriarch to cautionary tale, he spoke of betrayal, of isolation, of being left by individuals who did not cherish family. And yet the irony was not lost. To many in the audience, he had been the one who left them first, emotionally, before Christine ever did. Robyn, who was once perceived as quiet and was cast in the role of the villain. Each tear was questioned, each apology rolled her eyes at. "She plays the victim," fans complained, but she knew what she was doing. It wasn't fully fair, but judgment by the public seldom is. Nevertheless, not all the fallout was heartless. Some fans started crying out for mercy, reminding everyone that this was a real family, not fantasy figures. "We don't need to tear them down to know them," a fan said. That post got pinned on several chat boards, a soft request for humanity amidst all the anger. And gradually, after the height of the storm, the hubbub grew quiet. TLC renewed the next season, but this one would not be the same. It would not focus on marriage, but on recovery. Every wife living apart, every woman telling her truth. A honest, unshaven glimpse of what happens when common faith shatters under human frailty. For Christine, it was a coming back to life. She started making cooking videos, revealing moments with her children, and talking candidly about worth. Fans called it watching a woman breathe again. For Janelle, it was clarity, regaining financial freedom and emotional boundaries she'd long neglected. And for Mary, it was discovery, finding that loyalty does not equate to love. But for Robyn and Kody, it was loneliness. Their group shrunk. Their sightings became less frequent. Even their interviews became different, softer, more guarded, nearly haunted. The family who once stood united under the flags of togetherness had become a reflection of contemporary heartbreak, a cautionary story about love, faith, ego, and losing yourself in control. By the end of The Dust, Sister Wives was no longer a reality TV show. It was a mirror that reflected the silent anguish behind each perfect family portrait. And yet, even in the ruin there was light. Christine's smile, Janelle's strength, Mary's courage to move forward. Even Robyn's tears, if you really looked closely, weren't villainous tears.
They were tears of a person who built their life on a dream that ultimately crushed itself. Sometimes the truth doesn't kill us. It just reveals us to be the people we actually were all along. After all these years of turmoil, the din at last has dissipated. The cameras still turn periodically, but the buzz is different now, muted, intimate, human-sized. What was once a complicated narrative of love, possession, and public disintegration has mellowed into something else altogether. A group of lives attempting in their various ways to start over. And at its center is Christine Brown, glowing with the sort of happiness that does not require acting. For the first time in decades, her life belongs entirely to her. She wakes up in her Utah home, the one she bought on her own, with the quiet hum of peace filling the rooms. Her mornings aren't dictated by filming schedules or emotional negotiations. They're filled with small grounding rituals, cooking breakfast, FaceTiming her daughters, smiling at the life she built from the ashes of heartbreak. Her fans can tell right away, that unmistakable sheen. The baggage is gone. The forced grins are replaced with authentic smiles. In her videos, she talks not as someone fleeing pain, but as one who has learned from it. Healing isn't loud, she states in one video. It's just consistent. It's peace, one day at a time. She's also dating now, something that previously was never an option for the woman who declared she was finished with heartbreak. But love, when it finds her again, is different this time. More subtle, gentler. There are no commands to follow, no pecking order to tolerate. Just two individuals who view each other as peers, on the same level. Her daughters refer to it as her second, her fans refer to it as justice, but Christine refers to it as freedom. And in her world, the term carries because it means she got to script her own end, and her own start. And hundreds of miles away, walking through a much emptier house, is Kody Brown. Laughter that used to fill his evenings has given way to silence, the kind that reverberates. He's the same man in attitude, wide shoulders, assertive voice, but something in his eyes has lost its luster. In recent interviews he speaks more of loss than leave. He concedes almost hesitant that perhaps he worked too hard, loved conditional, trusted control. I thought that I was heading a family, he says in one clip, hesitating for a long time. But perhaps I was holding it all too tight. Those words struck different, coming from Kody, the man who used to view emotion as a sign of weakness, the man who constructed his universe on faith and control. Now he sits in that same Arizona house, enveloped by reminders of what once was. The family dinners, the laughter, the chaos. But this time, the tables are bare. He's learned, perhaps too late, that leadership without compassion becomes isolation. Some sympathize with him, some don't. But even the fiercest critics can observe it. Regret has mellowed him. It hasn't altered what's been done, but it's imprinted itself all over the man he is today. At his side, yet somehow detached, stands Robyn, still the most reserved, still the most enigmatic. Her house is quiet too. The energy that was so defensive before is brought low by something more melancholy, exhaustion. The manipulative woman once blamed is staring like someone who has no idea how to repair what she helped build. In one of her few public appearances, her voice breaks as she says, "This isn't what I wanted. I wanted family. I didn't want to." But the harm is done. And even if her tears are genuine, the world no longer. The story's been told. Robyn the architect, Kody the enabler. And yet, behind those public descriptions, a human reality exists. Individuals who constructed a fantasy on other people's sacrifices, only become stuck with. Their children have grown up under its shadow, observing the internet tear their family apart, stranger condemning their character. And while Kody and Robyn attempt to move on, their public silence speaks louder than any. For them, the storm has not ended. It's just quiet. And Janelle, she's found her own way. Independent, self-assured, creating her own and life from the plural marriage shadow. She's still the bridge between all of them. Still kind, still stable, but with defined boundaries. Asked if there can be reconciliation, she smiles softly and says, "We can forgive without return." And Mary, the woman who clung the tightest once, has mastered letting go. Her Instagram is full of affirmation now. Sunlight, new beginning. She doesn't mention Kody much, but when she does mention him, there's no bitterness, only space. It's ironic that endings illuminate individuals who never saw it coming. The Brown family, once a symbol of faith and unity, now represents something different. Growth. Imperfect, painful, but real. The kind of growth that only comes when truth finally replaces a. In a world obsessed with happy endings, theirs isn't clean or perfect. It's layered. bittersweet, honest. Christine's found peace. Janelle's found balance. Mary's found self-worth. Kody's found regret. And Robyn's found silence. Each of them in their own way is still learning what love really means when it's no longer defined by one man's or one family's faith, but by choice. The tale that starts as a party of togetherness winds up as a soft lesson in solitude. And maybe that's the true message hidden beneath all the betrayal, drama, and tabloids, that sometimes the holiest ritual is to part.
In the end, peace doesn't come from holding on. It comes from finally letting go.